Hey everyone, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is Christine and I like to read dark and disturbing things. Today I have a book tag for you, so let's check it out. So we have a super rare unicorn of a day where I actually have the house to myself for a few hours. Do you hear that? It's the sound of silence. It's so beautiful. Anyway, I thought I would take this opportunity to catch up on a couple book tags. I got my little cheat sheet here, and yes, I have to write it down because I use my phone to record. So the first tag is the finish the book tag, and I was tagged by Mindy over at Mindy's Book Journey. If you haven't checked out her channel, you should check it out. I'll link down below. I'm not sure who started this tag, but she tagged me and I appreciate it. So let's get into it. So number one is, do you keep a list of books you read? I do through Goodreads. I would say that most of the books I've read are on there. I really kind of got into it more in the last few years. So books that I read probably more than 5 years ago, I have no idea other than just my memory, which is not the best. But yeah, in the last few years, I've been much better about putting the books that I read in there. Before I didn't really understand the purpose of it, or I wasn't really didn't know there was a book community, and I didn't really know the purpose of Goodreads other than to try to find books that I wanted to read. So they're all there, and I am pretty good, at least within the last probably 4 or 5 years, at putting everything in there. The next question is, what stats do you record? And I last year just started doing a book journal, which I really enjoy doing. It kind of gives me just getting more out of reading. I have a whole video on my book journal if you want to check it out. But some of the stats that I started tracking, I don't know if this is really a stat, but I do track the books that I get in each month. So a physical copy of books. And then I have started kind of keeping a genre tracker just to see which books I read the most of, which it's horror. I also started doing like a book of the year. So each month I will pick my favorite book and then kind of pit it off one another. And even though it will be in my Goodreads, I did just start writing down just so I could see in one place all the books that I read with their star ratings. I have also started a Storygraph account this year in 2023, which will keep track of way more stats. I'm not great at updating that, so we'll see. I don't know how many stats I really need. It's just kind of fun to look at the end of the year. Number 3 is, do you give star ratings? Yes, I do on Goodreads. I would say for almost every book I read. There are some books that I find difficult to rate, especially if it is a graphic novel, just because I'm not like big in the graphic novel world. But if it's something that really blows me away, I will rate it. And if it's like a story about someone's life, like a biography or autobiography, I also find those a little bit hard to rate just because that's somebody's life. And that's a little bit weird just for me to rate. So almost everything I do rate on Goodreads. Number 4 is, do you review your books? Yes, I also do that on Goodreads. I try my best to review most books. Even they're not long reviews. They're sometimes just a couple sentences. If it was something I was really into or felt really strongly about one way or another, I will go a little bit more in depth. I also will post some of those on my Instagram, and you've seen some of them here on BookTube. If it's a book that's just kind of middle of the road, it's hard to have a whole lot to say about it. So usually it's something that I really loved or really disliked for a reason that I think should be pointed out so others know, or it's just something that I found really interesting that I want to talk more in depth about. Number 5 is, where do you put your finished books? Where do you put your finished books? On the bookshelf. I suppose that's kind of depends on the book that I read. So if it's something that I didn't like and I want to get rid of it, or it's a book that I'm like, okay, I read it and I know I'm never going to read this again or have no more use for this, I will put it in a separate spot on my bookshelves. I have more than this. I have some across the room there, and then I will post them on Pango and try to sell them. If they don't sell, I'll put them in free little libraries. So I guess that depends on where they're going. But most of them I end up that I like just kind of go into my collection. Number 6 is, how do you pick your next book? That's a good question, and it all depends on my mood. So a lot of times I do kind of have like a loose TBR or a pile of possibilities of things I want to get to, depending on if I'm participating in book club picks or read-alongs, that kind of thing. So then I do have a general idea, but the ultimate decision usually goes into, do I feel like picking this book up or not? And sometimes I get really excited about one that just jumps to the front of the line, and sometimes I'm reading something just because it's something I feel like I'm obligated to read, that I have put on my list. But most of the time it is based on mood. Number 7 is, do you have a ritual when you finish a book? I just lay back and smoke a cigarette. No, no, I really don't. I suppose that I go onto Goodreads and mark it as read and just kind of get excited for picking out which book I'm going to read next. But there's not a whole celebration or anything super interesting when I finish a book. If I have a lot of thoughts about it, I will try to go online and find what other people thought of these books and just kind of see what's going on, especially if I was left kind of confused. Or I will try to get all those thoughts out and putting them into a review while they're still kind of fresh in my mind. All right, and last is to tag somebody else. So I'm going to tag Inked Witch Reads. Tag your it. Obviously, if you feel like doing this, go ahead and tag yourself. If you don't feel like doing this, there's no hard feelings if you don't have time to do these tags. But I just wanted to say thank you for watching, everybody. Thanks to Mindy for tagging me, and stay spooky.